Well, it wasn't on my business plan or bucket list or anything to buy a Cricut Explore 5, but I have one. So I thought I would just do a review about it so that you can know the differences and be more prepared if you are thinking of purchasing one, because honestly, I just went out and bought it without doing any research, and that was really dumb. But first of all, why did I just go out like a fool and buy it? Is my Cricut Explore 4, which I have loved for the past 15 months, started shifting the score lines. So this is an example here. This line is supposed to go right in where this point is, and so the whole thing is just completely shifted and not where it's supposed to be. And I did lots of searching on why is this happening. I found one video that said, just figure out how much it shifted, and then for every project on your scoreline layer, figure out how many times you need to hit the left or right arrow and up arrows, to get the score lines to be in the right place to, fix the offset of the machine, which is ridiculous that you would have to do that. But mine was never consistent. It was always just off, but it never was like the same amount of off, if that makes sense. So I had 2 orders that I was trying to get out, and I couldn't have my score lines being that far off. The first time ever contacted Cricut Support, which spent like an hour of me doing all of these ridiculous things, and in the end said that it was the machine, it wasn't anything that they could fix, and since I was at 15 months, it was out of their warranty, and there was nothing that they can do. Which is really frustrating because my maker, I don't know if it's Maker 1, but it was like the first maker that they released. It still works. I used that for 8 years, like almost every day for my business. And the only reason I upgraded to the 4 was because it was faster. And it really is faster, because at one point I did get my maker out to finish my orders, and it is so slow. I couldn't believe how slow it was. So if you have an older machine and you're thinking of upgrading to the 4 or 5 because of speed, it is for sure worth it. And I think I said on my review of the 4 that it was worth it for the speed, but going back to that, holy cow, I don't think I realized just how much faster it is. So the 5, I knew it was, it looks different, obviously, but I really thought that it was still basically the same thing, which was stupid of me. You should never do that. So I opened it up, unboxed it, so then, I couldn't return it to Michael's, and I realized when I went to put my scoring stylus in what used to be slot A, which now is nothing, why doesn't it fit? And then I realized, what is this thing that came with my machine? And this is the new scoring stylus. And guess where it goes? It goes right where the fine point blade goes. So every time you have a project, especially like one from my shop, or the projects that I typically do are like the 3D projects that have the score lines and cut lines. So you have to put it in and it scores, and then you have to change this out and then it cuts. And then take it out and you're making, say you have an order and you're making 20 of them, you have to switch this out every single time. And there was one point that I forgot to switch it out, so it cut where my fold was and I wasted paper, and which was really frustrating. And that is just a huge deal for me. And I know that it's not a huge deal for everyone, but I was so mad at myself. And my husband said, pack it up and take it back to the store. But I should have bought it at Target. If I had bought it at Target, I probably would have tried, because they take everything back. But I know that Michael's doesn't, and it was my own fault for not, at least pulling up a video to watch it work. I just really assumed it was basically the same, because they've always had the scoring stylus in the separate clamp. So that is really a bummer. I had heard before, I did know that this new thing only takes Cricut pens. You can't use the different brand pens, but for me, I don't use the pen a ton, so using the Cricut brand really isn't too big of a deal. And I've actually I don't think I've ever bought any, so I've just always used the ones that it came with. But this one was starting to kind of dry out, but it doesn't fit. I was like, why doesn't it fit in there? So it came with a pen, and when I opened it, let's see, yeah, that's so the top one is the new one, and then the bottom one is the old one. You can see how the shape is different. So if you have a bunch of old pens, they won't work with your Cricut Explore 5. I'm assuming that all of their pens are like this now for this machine, but they do come with an adapter so that if you have an older machine, you can put the adapter on and then it'll fit into a clamp A. And I'll put a diagram that they have on their website up here so that you can see the adapter and how it works. If you aren't planning on upgrading to the 5 and you're just curious about pens, then that's how that works. I don't know why they did all of that, although I know that, you know, the adapter that goes into slot A can break, and it broke one time on my Maker, and then so that was kind of what started it all for my Cricut Explore 4 is the adapter broke, and I ordered new ones from Cricut.com, but in the meantime I took the one out of my Maker and put it in there, and I'm not 100% sure if it started then, but it must have. It was kind of like around a time that I went on vacation, so I wasn't really using it as much. So I don't know exactly when everything started to go off, you know, but it must have been that. And because I remember my scoring stylus, I used to have to just put it in there and clamp it, and it didn't have to like lock, you know, how you push it down and you have to wait for the click and then clamp it. So I don't know if the 4 came with a different adapter and now they're not selling that new adapter because they want you to just think, oh, it's broken, and buy the 5. I don't know. Let's go over the pros and cons. There are some pros for this. I'm sorry if I've been really negative. I'm just mad at myself for not doing more research. So the biggest pro for this one over the 4 is that it is so much quieter. If you watched my review on the Cricut Explore 4, you'll remember that anytime it cuts and scores, it goes beep beep. So it's like a constant beeping, and it's hard to, you know, listen to music or watch a video while you're working because you just can't hear anything over it. The 5 does not make that awful beeping noise, so it is much quieter. If you have an older version of a Cricut and you're thinking of upgrading to this, then that isn't really a pro for it, I guess. But it is a pro for getting this one over the 4 since the 4 is still available. Another pro is that this new score tool does score a little bit deeper, so it makes folding a lot easier, but it's not, I don't think it's that great because on the Explorer you can just have it score several times and it will be as deep as well. And that, I know that does take longer because it's doing it 3 times instead of once, but that's worth it to not have to swap out the scoring stylus and the blade on everything, to me, but maybe it's not to you. Another bonus is that it's a little bit shorter widthwise, so you have a little more room on your desk. Doesn't matter too much to me, but maybe it does for you. So in comparison to the 4 and the 5, that's really the only pros that I would say are reasons that I would switch to this one. But if you do have an older than a 4, I highly recommend getting one of these because they just are that much faster and it's really, really worth it. So moving to cons, obviously I am very upset about switching the scoring stylus and the blade, but maybe you cut mostly vinyl and that doesn't matter. So that's my con, maybe it's not your con. The other con is that your old scoring styluses won't work on this machine, and I guess that's not a huge thing. It did come with a new scoring stylus, but I have a couple of these still in the package because they do go dull. And that's the other thing that I'm really worried about with the new scoring stylus. I looked online and I couldn't find a place to buy a new one. I don't know if it's because this machine is still really new, so nobody would need a new one yet, but I'm nervous that if that goes dull that I have to buy a whole new machine to get a new one. Hopefully they release replacements of that scoring stylus soon. Another big drawback for a lot of users that I did see feedback before I purchased this one, but it didn't matter too much to me, is the pen tool. Like we said, your old ones won't work with the new machine, and you can only use the Cricut brand pens. Doesn't matter to me, like we already went over, but if it matters to you, then that is a con. The other thing that's kind of silly, I will admit, I really miss the little built-in cup holder. All of my Cricuts have always had a little cup holder here, and I don't have enough tools that I need like a full big pencil holder, but this one was perfect, and I really do miss it. Even though it's shorter, I would rather I'd rather have it. Another just kind of weird, silly thing is that the 5 doesn't have a power button, so you can't turn it off. You have to just unplug it. And I mean, I guess like a standard like inkjet printer, those don't have on and off buttons either, and maybe that's why they were thinking that, but I don't like that. You know, the whole like vampire energy thing, so I unplug it and I wish it had a power button, but that's just me. Maybe that's not a con for you. So these are my pros and cons and my thoughts about this machine, and I'm hoping that it helps you, that you watch this before you go out and buy one, and you don't just run to Michael's like I did, assuming that it was the same, because it is not. And I also, one thing that has really surprised me about this YouTube channel is I started it so that I could answer frequently asked questions from my customers and make helpful tutorials and different tips to make cricketing easier. And a few of you have left me some amazing comments that have really taught me different things. And I just love that we're sharing our experiences and our advice with each other. And so I also was just wondering, has anybody else had the scoring issue with their 4? And have you figured it out? Oh my gosh, I would love you forever if you could tell me what's wrong. I have tried everything. I restarted, I cleared the cache, I deleted design space from my computer and reinstalled it. I tried doing it on my phone, everything. So, but maybe not everything. So if there's something that worked for you, please let me know. I would love to have that information. And if I ever figure it out, which I am not going to give up yet, even though I really can't think of anything else that I can try, let me know, because I would just love you. And so right now I'm sort of, I don't know. Amazon has Cricut Explore 4s available. They are $250, which is what I paid for this one, which is kind of annoying because it's a older model. Shouldn't it be discounted? But I'm tempted to just buy it, even though then that's $500 that I wasn't planning on spending. $500 less that I will make this year because I had to replace a machine that shouldn't have needed replacing yet. So and if I do buy another 4, is it just gonna break in a year again? So those are my thoughts. I guess kind of my warning, if you're thinking about a 4, it might not last, but if you don't score, then maybe it doesn't matter to you. So those are the differences. And of course, as always, if you have any further questions about either of the models, feel free to leave them in the comments below. I'm always happy to answer any questions. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to keep up on what's new in the Cricut world.